Well, thank you for being here again for our monthly post-board meeting opportunity with the press to engage on important decisions that were made at last night's board meeting and other district-wide initiatives in which you might be interested. We're excited that today we're hosting Principal for an A+ Day across the district. All of our schools are represented by a business partner. Inside of the school, we have Lindsay Boger here today with Jermaine Joyner, the proud principal here at St. John's High School, who is from Discovery Ed. And she and Mr. Joyner are doing all the things that our principals do each and every day, which are countless in many ways in their service to children and the adults that serve our children. So Lindsay, we thank you and Discovery Ed for being here at St. John's High School today. We're also proud of the great work that Mr. Joyner and his team are leading here at the St. John's High School. And as we look to the new year, Mr. Joyner has a really strong plan about engaging more people here in the community and strengthening the feeder pattern so that students matriculate from the elementary school to Hawk Gap Middle and on to St. John's High School to become an Islander. We're really proud of the work he's done to build a robust academic program here. We'll announce soon an exciting partnership with some of our institutes of higher ed to offer an advanced academy here next year. 40 students applied from Hawk Gap Middle and the island to be part of that exciting program in the new year. We've also committed to expanding our arts programs here, offering a theater program down at Hawk Gap, up here into St. John's, and we're also working to expand the athletic opportunities. B team, we're also expanding volleyball, tennis, golf, etc. Mr. Joyner and his team are working thoughtfully around that. So we're proud of Mr. Joyner and the wonderful things that he has planned for the year. I'm going to ask him to come up, talk a little bit about the progress he and teachers are making, and look with you into the new year. Mr. Joyner.
Thank you, Ms. Huggins. So we are excited. St. John's is a high school. We have a very lofty vision of becoming an excellent rated high school where we produce world-class citizens and lifelong learners. So we're excited about the support that Ms. Huggins and the district has provided us going into the 25-26 school year, especially around the academics. I was a little surprised with the amount of students that applied for the initial Academy of Advanced Academics. And so we have 40 students that we will be going through, and hopefully we will be able to provide some very rigorous academics to those students and provide them with some exposure to college level classes. Athletics is always an exciting thing, and so with the improvements to our football team through the advancement of a B team, hopefully we can get those kids starting out in middle school to transition to our high school sports. And we're super excited about the start of a tennis program where our community members have been saying for over the years that this is something that they really wanted. So we've been working with some of the tennis people in the United States Tennis Association, as well as some of our colleagues down at Angel Oak, where they have a very robust tennis program, and we're excited to be able to start that next year. And then finally, our arts program with the advancement of a theater program. We will be making some changes to our facilities over the next few months to prepare for that. And so these are all exciting things that we are wanting. Our community has wanted for a while, and we're excited that we are able to bring this to them next year. We're very confident that with these supports, as well as some flexible use of our funding, specifically the weighted student funding formula, that we will be able to create a very diverse environment that is exciting and academically thriving. Yes.
I know that obviously Superintendent Huggins mentioned that this need kind of comes from wanting to keep people on the ground and keeping kids in the space. Can you just talk about, I guess this program, and from your perspective as an administrator here, what you've personally seen and why you think these initiatives will help to improve that issue?
Yeah, so over the years, we've made some improvements to keeping our kids here on the island. I think a lot of the perception was that we didn't offer academically advanced courses, and so they were going to some of the larger schools that just by nature of their size, were able to offer some of these courses. Over the last 2 years, we were able to move from having 5 advanced courses and college-level courses, advanced placement and dual enrollment to offer in 13. So we will have kids leaving out of our high school this year with 36 hours of college credit. And so that was with a great partnership with one of our local universities, and we want to be able to expand that with this Academy of Advanced Academics. So I think that alone is that takes away some of that perception, knowing that the school has a program dedicated to some of these high-performing students. And then athletics is another thing where, again, a larger school provides more opportunities. And so grabbing those kids at the middle school, getting them connected with the school, getting them to wear Islander gear, instilling that Islander pride in them in middle school, hopefully that'll help connect them and keep them here when they transition to high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. That was wonderful. Like Mr. Joyner said, we are really committed to keeping students here on the island. We believe that all communities deserve great neighborhood schools where they feel like they can send their children. And I'm proud of Mr. Joyner's leadership and the work that he is doing just in that regard. So thank you again, Mr. Joyner, and thank you for having us here today. Last night with our board, we also talked about our local campaign, which is linking opportunities to classrooms and our learners. And we're thrilled that almost 100% of our schools have been adopted by local businesses who care deeply about our children. If you're watching today and you haven't yet adopted a school and or classrooms inside of that school, we hope that you will certainly join us. Last night, our board also thankfully approved our FCO, which will expand actually culinary here at the St. John's High School, a $3.8 million ask from our board, and we're grateful to them and to Mr. Joyner for his leadership and his vision in that regard. What we didn't discuss last night with our board, but what we're excited to share with you today, is the launch of a new incentive pilot program in 10 of our schools. And several of our principals are here today representing that very hard work and their vision, their desire to do whatever it takes to get our children into school. The esteemed Councilman Henry Darby from North Charleston High School and his Executive Director Trevor Strawderman are here. Mr. James Dallas from E.B. Ellington Elementary School out in the Ravenel area is here, and Ms. Kayla Clark representing Lambs Elementary School in North Charleston is here to talk a little bit about the incentive program. During COVID, South Carolina experienced a significant percentage of students chronically absent from its classrooms and from the engagement with teachers, even virtually. Nearly 25% of students specifically were chronically absent. This is a national problem, and we're not immune to it here in South Carolina, and specifically in Charleston. We believe one key reason that an achievement gap and an opportunity gap exists between children of color specifically and their peers is absenteeism and truancy. And despite our very best efforts, both fiscally, in a human resources capacity as well, while we're making gains, despite those efforts, we are still not able to overcome the challenges associated with chronic absenteeism and truancy. And so we have 10 schools, elementary, middle, and high, that are piloting this incentive program, reward program, over the next 9 weeks. We have almost 3 weeks under our belts. The incentive program consists of a $25 reward loaded to a debit card per week for families whose students are in school every day that week. So again, if students are in school for 5 consecutive days in the run of the week, the family gets $25 loaded to a debit card. We've partnered with Bill.com in this initiative, and so our CFO and his team are able to monitor how families and students spend the monies on those cards. And those cards are limited in so much as where as they can be used. We understand that this is a bit unconventional. Certainly senior leaders and I, those around me, even some of these principals who said, I'll do anything it takes, scratched our head for just a second when we thought, do we really reward students for something we expect them to do? Plainly spoken, we will do whatever it takes to get kids in school. And the results from this pilot program have been simply amazing in the first 2.5 weeks. Let me share some specific data with you. All 10 schools have reported significantly increased perfect attendance from week 1 of the pilot to week 2. Specifically, Goodwin Elementary in North Charleston achieved 100% perfect attendance in week 2 with its 5th grade, a 20% increase from week 1. A.C. Cochran, also in North Charleston, saw nearly a 30% increase in perfect attendance, and Lamb's 4th grade experienced almost a 30% increase in perfect attendance. All of our schools, except for one in our middle school, achieved double-digit gains in perfect attendance for at least one grade level. The results are simply amazing. We are tracking the data very carefully. If the results continue on this trend, the investment per student will be approximately $225, significantly lower than the nearly $600 per pupil cost associated with our current interventions in regards to attendance and absenteeism specifically. So, again, we know there are lots of questions out in the public about this, but we're really thinking outside of the box about how to get our children in school and keep our children in school so that we can close the achievement gap, reach our goals related to Vision 2027, and make sure that all children leave this system college, career, military ready, which is what all kids deserve. So with that, I'm certainly open to any questions that you might have for me or other members of our team, including some of our principals. Absolutely, Caitlin. Ask anything you want.
In terms of, obviously, I know you mentioned it would be around $225 a student in terms of investment. Can you talk about where that money is coming from and what will happen to it if there's money left over when the pilot ends?
Absolutely. So we've gotten some questions on our social media about this, and really taxpayers and our public deserve to know exactly where the monies come from and how we're expending them. These monies were reallocated within the weighted student funding allocation that we've talked so much about, which targets primarily pupils in poverty, students who acquire English as a second language, and special needs students. The WSF, very frankly, is supported by the General Operating Fund, portions of that which is supported by taxpayer dollars. Mr. Prentice, do you want to come up and say anything additional about how those funds will be used or reallocated?
Sure. So as Ms. Huggins mentioned, the funds come from weighted student funding. So as we've looked throughout the year, some schools have had savings in their plans, whether it was from hiring a resource that went vacant or not being able to fill a position. So in our effort to maximize the utilization of those dollars by the end of the fiscal year and by the end of the school year, we looked at reallocating to be able to make this pilot a reality. If the funds are not expended by June 30th, the cards will close out. And so that allows us to close down our fiscal year 2025 process. And so we're giving that deadline. And then any of the unspent funds or the unexpended funds would roll back into fund balance and weighted student funding for reappropriation in a future year.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
I would love for you to hear from a principal or two about the difference that they believe this is making with their children. So I'll invite any of you. Mr. Dallas, would you like to be first? Since I called on you, or would you like me to call on Mr. Darby first?
No, my dad told me to always be ready.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So good morning. So we've seen a lot of excitement in the building, and as Ms. Huggins said, you know, as a school, we provide a wonderful opportunity for our kids to learn and take advantage of the resources that we have in our building, but we can't do that unless they're in the seats. So I know this is unconventional. It's something that people are not accustomed to, but it is working in our building. There's a lot of energy in our building. Our kindergarten, fifth grade numbers are really off the charts. We've seen significant growth in the number of students who are coming to school every day. And we've always, I mean, since I've been doing this for 37 years, we've always incentivized students for perfect attendance. This is just a different, a new and unique way of doing that. And so we're seeing the success, we're seeing the energy in the building, and our building is fun. It's the kids are there every day, and they're taking advantage of all those resources that we have to provide to them. So great energy at EB Ellington, and we're looking forward to continuing this pilot, hopefully, into the next year.
Can I have you say and spell your full name?
First name is James, James, add the E, and last name is Dallas, as in Dallas, Texas, not Cowboys. All right, thank you.
He said that specifically for Mr. Joyner, his colleague and friend, I think. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the students who are already getting perfect attendance. Are they eligible for this?
Oh, that's a great question. I can't believe that I left that out. So we were very strategic in how we piloted this. It differs among schools. In Mr. Darby's school, for example, more grades, more students are eligible, but to be, again, very transparent, if we chose the third grade at Lambs Elementary, for example, all students in the third grade are eligible for the incentive, not just the students who were chronically absent. We didn't want to in any way de-incentivize students who were already showing a regular pattern of attendance. And so we piloted with all students in the grade bands where we are piloting this tool, or this reward in our schools. I'd like you to hear, if it's okay, from Mr. Darby. As you know, he's the esteemed principal over at North Charleston High School, so he can talk to you a little bit about how this works with teenagers. Mr. Darby?
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. When I first contemplated the matter, I had a dual experience, much akin to a Plato's charioteer. But I think it's a marvelous idea whose time has come. If we continue doing the same thing with the same results, I think that's a measure of insanity. So this is something innovative, and I'm very appreciative of Superintendent Huggins and her staff clairvoyance and foresight to come upon a program such as this. At North Charleston High School, the kids love it, if I may use that term. They actually do. Students are now coming to school, those who are absent. And they weren't absent just to be absent. A number of these kids have jobs. When you have a student who works at Duncan and closes at 11 at closing time for a 16-year-old child, that says something. But these dollars will definitely help her out. And there are other examples of our schools where students are saying, yes, the dollars are needed. So to incentivize children in terms of monetary means is not a pejorative thing. It is something that is much needed, particularly when it comes down to metaphysical, abstract poverty. Of course, we cannot remunerate the kids for everything that they do. However, for a child to say, I'm going to get to school now because this is going to help me, it really has helped out with North Charleston High School's absenteeism as well as the truancy. So again, we are happy and elated that Ms. Huggins and her staff came up with this idea because, again, I had questioned, but when one sees the final result, and she comes from the perspective that one must do what is best for the child. That's why we are educators, and that's what educators do. We do what is best for children, and this happens to be one of those innovative programs.
I appreciate that a lot, Mr. Darby. It takes great leaders in schools to make things happen. So the real work is what's going on in our schools with our principals and the leadership of our teachers who are working with our students. And Mr. Darby made such a great point that I also excluded earlier, is that we do believe these funds will help students overcome some of the barriers that have prevented them from coming to school in the first place, whether that be needing to come in late or leave early or not show up at all because they need to support their family with a job, whether that might be related to transportation costs because they're going to a school perhaps outside of their zone, whether that's daycare or childcare for a younger sibling or their own child that they're having to pay pay for in order to go to school or miss school to care for. So we do hope and think that these funds that we've allocated will help support students and their needs. Our last principal is Mrs. Clark. Again, all of our schools, and we're happy to share these results with the media, have experienced significant increases in student attendance and perfect attendance. And Mrs. Clark is one school that has experienced significant, almost a 30% increase just in the last week. So Ms. Clark, please come right on.
At Lambs, we're thrilled with what we're seeing. We're piloting within our 4th grade. We chose that grade very specifically, looking at our absenteeism rate and thinking about our students that are going to be taking SC Ready when it comes up. So really that seat time, so critical for us. One of our teachers, when I was talking to them about it and trying to gain some buy-in, she said, we're not magicians. We can't teach them if we're not here. And so really getting our kids in school, getting them happy to be there and showing up every single day has been a big game changer for us. Our classrooms are fuller. You can feel the energy and excitement. And our 4th grade team is really happy at the results that we're seeing. So we're looking forward to some continued positive results and continued gains.
And so we beg the public's patience with us. We, again, know this is unconventional thinking, outside of the box thinking. Some might even call it strange and thwarted thinking. But we plan on being very transparent with the data after a 9-week pilot. I want to be very clear that this was open to all principals to join the pilot, and we believe that whatever results we see here, we can apply to whatever we do in the future, whether that be to continue this work or to say, listen, that doesn't work either. Let's find something else. So we, again, will be very transparent with the results and share that with the public, the taxpayers, our Board of Trustees, and the parents who are involved in this process. With that, we're open to any questions you might have about this, last night's board meeting, or anything else CCSD related, to be quite frank. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a couple of clarifying questions.
Yes.
In the younger grade levels, is that funding going directly to the parents, and then at the high school level, it's going to the high schooler? And how are you differentiating that?
So that's a great question. The families get the debit card and across the board, or the families we have shared with the families that the cards are to be directed to the families. And so at the high school, Mr. Darby, I believe you hand the card to the student. Is that correct, sir?
18 years of age.
18, if they're 18 years of age, Mr. Darby's clarified for me, they get the cards directly. And it's, again, bill.com and the debit cards. It's not cash or just random gift cards. It's a specific card for a specified use.
And what are those specified uses?
There are places that the cards are actually you are prohibited. So, Mr. Prentice, will you come up and talk a little bit about where the cards can be used and where they can't, or for what they can't be used?
Sure. And so this little bit of refinement and training here, but this is the pilot, and so we're looking at ways to make sure that we get this right in the long term. But there's these MCC codes that are known in the payment card world, and so we restricted anything that we wanted to make sure would not be appropriate to provide adequate resources to these families, whether it be liquor stores, gambling, any type of use that would be potentially averse. So we're looking at things like utilities, food, fuel, basic necessities. And we've seen already in some of the initial data, Dominion Energy, grocery stores, Uber, Lyft, car-to-bus services, all of those kind of things being utilized so far, which is a good indicator of the need out there for the utilization of the funds. So that's kind of our initial intent. We're looking at maybe making it more vendor-specific in the future, but right now it's just restricted based on those payment card codes.
What other questions do you have? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. If a household has multiple students, like you have a daughter in 4th grade and then you have a high schooler as well, and both students are in the pilot program, is it $25 per kid?
It is.
Per household?
It's $25 per kid. $25 per kid. Great question. Other questions?
Just a final thing, I know you mentioned a little bit about, obviously you guys are analyzing the program as a pilot, and then once it's over, you'll determine what's next steps. Can you talk about what those next steps could potentially look like? Give some examples of other incentive programs that the district might look at for this topic.
Absolutely. So based on the results, we could decide to continue the pilot. If the results are questionable and we're not sure whether the gains are significant enough, we could expand to include other schools, other locations. We could expand in the current schools to include other grade levels. Not all schools, for example, are piloting each grade level. Mrs. Clark, which grade levels are you piloting? Just fourth grade. And so the pilot is limited right now to, I think, about 1,900 students across the system. So the decisions will be made to either, again, expand, to maintain, or if at the end of the pilot, the early results that we're seeing are not maintained, it could be that there's not enough return on investment for this specific thing, and we need to look to do something else. And we're really looking nationally and even internationally at how other places are getting kids in school and keeping kids in school. And this is one such way where other places, larger urban areas like Detroit, for example, have experienced some significant success. It's a great question, Caitlin. Thank you. Yes, please.
I might have some more questions for our CFO.
Absolutely. I'm glad to call him right on up here. Mr. Prentice, come right on up here.
I was just wondering if you could give us some more figures as far as grand totals on what this is going to cost overall, the pilot program, and then how that compares to the other initiatives. I know you briefly mentioned it, but just some comparison.
Yes. So as Ms. Huggins mentioned, the total cost of this, if every single student involved showed up perfect attendance for the entire 9 weeks, would be $225 per student. Roughly $400,000 for the pilot. The first week was around $30,800 of the total amount allocated, which was around $46,450. So you can see that utilization in terms of the perfect attendance compared to the total eligible pool of students. The number around $600 per pupil is based on schools that selected chronic absenteeism intervention strategies in their weighted student funding plan, which was predominantly based on human resources and bringing in employees to intervene and provide support to parents and things of that nature. And so the cost of those salaries and benefits over the pupils served is roughly $600 per pupil for those investments. So in theory, if this works and the data shows significant improvements over the human capital investments, it would be a higher ROI to provide the rewards in lieu of using the human capital resources to do such. So that's kind of what we're looking at this point in time.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And then one more.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to run away.
I know we had talked earlier last week about some potential Department of Education at the federal level impacts. Would this be one of the potential programs that could be impacted in the next school year based on where this funding is coming from?
So this is all derived from the general operating fund. So we are fully funding weighted student funding in our recommended budget for FY 2026. So this year's budget is about $32.8 million. Next year is $36.1 million for weighted student funding. So the only impact would really be if it was determined not to be an effective means and we didn't allow for it to be used as a strategy, or if a principal didn't want to use the funds for that purpose. But they will still have their weighted student funding allocation in FY 26. Thank you.
Any other questions about this? Anything board related or any other district matter? Because we've got a lot of people here that can answer. You good? Well, we're certainly grateful that you were here. If we can answer any clarifying follow-up questions about this, please certainly let us know. We appreciate your support in helping us get the truth out about the work we're doing here in Charleston County School District. Thanks for your support of our children.